Do you hate your writing? Well, this video is for you. Hi everyone. In all seriousness, today's video is going to be how to be a more confident writer, aka how to love your own writing. I have been there where I've absolutely despised my writing, and as someone who's sort of come out the other side, who has learned to love my writing, who does love my writing, I wanted to sort of share some tips because I know that a lot of writers struggle with confidence. Here are a couple of tips on how to become a more confident writer from an ex-insecure writer. So number one, accept and forgive your mistakes. As a writer, you're always going to feel inadequate at some points, and the truth is, sometimes you are going to be inadequate. I know that sounds harsh, but hear me out. I spent so much time beating myself up over not being good enough. That was before I realized I was jumping the gun. I can't be good enough all the time. Sometimes I'm just okay. Sometimes I'm excellent. Sometimes I just am, and that's totally fine. The minute I realized that, I stopped being so insecure about my work. And that's because I know I'm not infallible. I also know that I'm capable of surviving making mistakes, or God forbid, being a bad writer. Since being at some of my most insecure moments, I've also had moments of great confidence. And looking back, learning that I can survive feeling like a terrible writer, learning that I can survive being a terrible writer has made me a lot stronger on the other side. Number two, avoid describing your work negatively. How many of us have used the phrases, oh, it's just an early draft. Oh, I know this is a bit cringe. Oh, I know this isn't good, to describe our work. I've been there. I've used all of these phrases. While I get the impulse, and I still do it to this day, I recommend, if you're a writer trying to work on your confidence, trying hard not to do that. Most of the time, I was bringing down my own work as an act of self-preservation. I was embarrassed that somebody else might judge me, might judge my writing. So I mentioned this in my Bad Habits All Writers Should Stop Doing video, which I will link in the cards and in the description, and this particular phrase seemed to resonate with a lot of folks. So I said in the video, quote, a lot of writers like to tear apart their work because they fear that other people will do it, and they want to do it before anyone else can say something. The only person who gets harmed when you talk negatively about your own work is you. When you think about it, you worked hard on creating that writing, and now I've done it before. I've just reduced my writing that I worked really hard on, no matter if I'm happy with it or not, as cringe. It's okay to acknowledge flaws in your work. I'm not saying that you shouldn't self-critique. I am a big proponent for self-critique, but masking insecurity with overzealous self-critique or self-deprecation will only get you so far. I know that a lot of writers do this, so this is my more balanced approach. When I say something negative because I'm insecure about my writing, I like to say something positive too. So if I say, oh my God, like this scene was so cringy, I'm like, okay, well, I liked this description. And that balance is helpful. I can still sort of be a little bit self-deprecating because sometimes you need to be that way, but I'm also balancing that out by telling myself, well, it's not all bad. Look, I also enjoyed this one thing. So number three to becoming a more confident writer is to try to view your work as a reader, aka the embroidery effect. Like embroidery, writing is a tedious process. I got the idea for this tip based off of a meme I saw on Tumblr that I can't find. I looked for it, but it was an image of an embroidery piece. One was the backside of the embroidery, and it said how writers see their work. The other image was the front side of the embroidery, which was really, really beautiful. And it said how readers see your work. But if you're not feeling confident in your work, it could be because you are seeing your work solely through writers' eyes. In this moment, can you imagine yourself instead as a reader? How might they react when they're reading your work? Would they see every tiny flaw, the whole mess, the backside of the embroidery, or would they see the beautiful final picture? Something that might make this easier is sort of rereading your work in a way a fan might. So for example, you could audiobook it. So get a robot on Word, for example, to read it for you. That's my personal favorite. You can print it out on like paper and read it that way. Some people find that that makes their work feel more like a real book that isn't necessarily on their computer for them to tear apart. Or you can make an ebook, something to make it look less like a document. It could just be changing the page size on Word, exporting it to a PDF and getting it on your phone and reading it on there. Essentially, you can mimic the environment a reader might read your book in, and perhaps even get more into the reader headspace rather than the writer headspace. Get some tea, light a candle, and try to enjoy the process of reading and liking your own work. Number four is, ever so often, note something you like about what you wrote. Sometimes we need a reminder that we do like our own writing. A lot lot of writers struggle to hear compliments on their own work and cannot even compliment their own writing. I know that I used to be like this. Like writing, complimenting your own work is a skill that you need to develop with practice. At whatever frequency you're comfortable with, this could be every scene, it could be every chapter, it could be every arc. Find something you like about what you wrote. This can be a single line, it can be a character, it can be a line of dialogue, it can be a description. Anything that will get you in the habit of learning to say nice things about your writing. It might be helpful to even think about how you'd compliment somebody else's writing. See if you can apply that same energy to your work. So my 5th tip is to ask a trusted friend for a compliment read. Sometimes it's most helpful to hear that someone else likes your work. While I think it's important for writers to learn how to love their work without external validation, it would be unrealistic for me to say that compliments sometimes don't matter more than our own compliments to ourselves. We like being told as writers that somebody else likes our work. A lot of people are like that. A lot of people want that external validation. If I'm feeling down about something I wrote, I'll sometimes seek external validation by going to my critique partner, who is my sister, and asking her to hype me up a bit. It's totally fine and totally normal to seek praise. Sometimes it'll motivate me to keep going. You just have to know when you're relying on people's praise to continue writing and when you just need it as a little bit of a pick-me-up. So in this instance, lay out what you'd like your friend or critique partner to do. If you don't want any critique on your work, make sure they know that you don't want critique on the work. If you want to know if they like the dialogue or the description or the setting or the tension, ask them specifically to make note of that. This isn't necessarily to manufacture compliments, but to create a safe space of external validation that will allow you to self-validate your work. Eventually, you may not need to rely on external validation at all, or at least so much, and be able to do this yourself. However, sometimes it's just nice to hear a compliment. My sister and I will often swap work and be like, I just need you to hype me up about this paragraph. I'm feeling really bad about it. And that'll get me to continue writing for the night instead of giving up. There's no harm in a little bit of external validation. It's nice to feel solidarity, especially with somebody you trust. So those are 5 tips to becoming a more confident writer, how to love your writing. Let me know in the comments. This is your first test. What is one thing that you've written recently that you really love? I'm going to share one because I'm not a hypocrite. I have been writing a lot of 7th Virtue, which is my adult fantasy novel, and I wrote a scene with 2 characters, Darren and Reeve, who, there's a romantical tension going on in the scene, and I wrote them at a cabin for the first time, seeing each other in a long time after their sort of like abrupt breakup, and I adore that scene. I'm so excited to reread that scene. What have you written recently that you really like? Let me know in the comments. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.